So 14 years ago, we were camping up in the Okanagan Falls to be exact. It was a beautiful KOA campground in a tent. And a freak windstorm came up. And we were lying there, my husband and I, thinking, should we get up? Shouldn't we get up? And before we could make the decision to get up, the cottonwood that was over our tent got lifted by the wind and dropped onto our tent. And at the time, I wasn't aware of the significant damage because it landed on my husband, but didn't crush him that I could see. And at the time, all I could think was, we need to get out from underneath this tree, and I couldn't move him and I couldn't move the tree. So as I scrambled out from underneath the tree calling for help, there really wasn't any help to be had at that point in time. And so I was taken away from the situation while people came in to deal with it. It was a little bit later when the police officers came out and said, and she just started to cry. And so at that point in time, I knew what had happened. And nothing like that has ever happened to me before. And I cannot explain how I felt at that time. It was sheer shock and numbness that this had happened. And since everyone else was crying, I simply went into the mode of taking care of them. From there, I stayed on autopilot for quite a long time. I am a caregiver. It's what I do. And my children needed me, and his family needed me, and I just started to take care of everybody. I took care of all the preparations for the service. I had it at my house. I hosted everything. It was easier for me to look after other people than it was for me to look after myself. And there was no one to look after me. I would say it's more of a self-preservation, where you just say, I don't have time to deal with this right now. And because I had never experienced anything like that before, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I just didn't let it in. The day I chose to come back to work was a day when I knew the entire team was away at a retreat, because I didn't want to deal with everyone when I came back to work. And so I was prepared when they came in the next day. I was able to be prepared for what their reactions were going to be and sort of steel myself for the emotions around it. And again, I was still in autopilot mode. I was still looking after them because they were quite upset, and there was work to be done. What I found was that I had very little energy. I stormed through the day, drove home, and I have quite a commute. I drove home and I just crawled into bed, and then waited for the alarm to get up the next day and start all over again. So that was the real hard part for me, is that I just got into a routine where I just kept going. I knew that something was off because I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't eating properly, I wasn't talking to anybody. I'm really an upbeat person, and I wasn't upbeat. I didn't smile. You wouldn't have caught me in any color whatsoever, because I just didn't, and I wasn't even aware of what I was doing. But I just kept thinking, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. I just have to keep pretending everything's normal, and it's going to go away. I came home one day, and my girls, who were teenagers at the time, looked at me and they started to cry. And they said to me, "You're really scaring us. You're not who you're supposed to be. You're withdrawing from us. We see the changes in you. We're scared. This has got to change." And so it was when they said to me, "This is going on, something bad is going on here," I went, whoa, I have to do something here. And then took a real hard look at, in the mirror, like literally took a look in the mirror and said, "Holy smokes, you are not in good shape here. Not in good shape. You've got to do something about this." I didn't know what was going on. I just had to do something about it. Well, I came into work and I talked to some of my colleagues, and I said, okay, I need someone really special to talk to get through this. And they hooked me up with someone who was a specialist in survivor guilt, because that was the huge piece for me, is that I should have died and I didn't. And I couldn't understand why I didn't die or why I wasn't harmed, and this lovely man was killed. It was quite cathartic to speak to him and just, let out the anger and because I was very angry that this had happened. It wasn't fair. And that someone in the prime of their life had been taken in this way, sort of arbitrarily. The anger over that I survived, and what was I going to do? How was I going to get my life back? And then I went to a 12-week grief counseling group in the community that was geared for people who had lost a spouse. And so, I mean, one of the things when you lose someone is that you truly feel it's only you. Nobody else has ever gone through it. So when you hear the stories of other people who have gone through something similar, and at least that was a group where I didn't hear, oh, that was you, when I tell the story. Oh, that was you, because I'd hear about it in the news. And so it was good to have that acceptance that what I was feeling was pretty normal. While I never had an official diagnosis of depression, I certainly had all the signs and symptoms of it, and was very fortunate that I reached out when I did. And people at work never actually realized what I was going through. So I think, you know, one of the most important things that I have learned through this process is you can't be embarrassed, and you can't be ashamed, and you can't feel guilty. You need some help. And at Providence, we're really lucky because we have a lot of great resources that, you know, you can just reach out. We have a lot of fantastic managers that have good relations with their staff. If you are struggling with anything that is a little off, your behavior's a little off, you need to not be afraid to say, you know what, I'm not right. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I don't feel myself, and I need some help. Who can I talk to? You know, where do I look? How do I take that step? And I think that's the biggest thing is I'm not ashamed of what I went through. I have no problem sharing the story. There should not be a stigma around this sort of situation. Life sometimes is really crappy. And sometimes you just need a little bit more help to get through it. And I don't think we should be afraid to ask for it like we are in healthcare.